and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, we'll have the minutes read from the previous meeting, please.
The regular monthly meeting of the Franklin Town Board was called to order at 7:35 p.m. by Supervisor Jeff Taggart. Present were Jeff Taggart, Garrett Sitz, David Grant, Donnie Smith, Dwight Bruno, Mark Lang, and Paul Warner. The minutes were read for the April 3rd, 2018 meeting. Garrett made a motion to accept the minutes as read. Dwight seconded the motion, and all agreed. The minutes were read from the April 10th, 2018 meeting. David made a motion to accept the minutes as read. Dwight seconded the motion, and all agreed. The position on the Board of Assessment Review was voted on with Bob Egler receiving votes from David, Donnie, and Dwight. Jeff has offered the position on the Planning Board to the other candidate, Barb Thompson. The board has received 3 bids for the lighting project at the town shed building. Lime Energy is $8,986, Eastern Energy $5,030, and Trimble Electric $5,797.47. David made a motion to go with Trimble Electric. Garrett seconded the motion, and all agreed. There are 2 proposals to do the 2015, 16, and 17 AUD reports. Mostert, Manzano, and Scott, base price would be $1,000. Mike Giovinazzo would charge $45 an hour, not to exceed $1,000. Garrett made a motion to go with Mike G. Dave seconded the motion, and all agreed. Mark Lang will need a resolution to make Rich Road a local traffic-only road during the roundabout construction. Dwight made the motion to make Rich Road a local traffic-only road. Dave seconded the motion, and all agreed. There are many of the roads in the town of Franklin that are in very bad due to the potholes in the roads. The town is trying to get spring work done on the roads. They're 3 weeks behind schedule due to the weather. Mark needs a resolution to put 0.13 miles of Samley Spur Road back into the town's inventory. There will be a special meeting on May 22nd regarding a qualified road abandonment for a portion of Beebe Road and DeMond Road. The landfill was checked by DEC on April 24th. Mark reports the grader will need a new transmission. The estimates are between $14,000 and $56,000. They will run it as long as possible for now. The town highway crew will be taking a distracted driving course and chainsaw chipper training on May 31st. The town clerk will send the Walton Reporter a legal notice for the 2014 AUD, which is done and in the clerk's office for viewing. Dwight has been looking into the phone systems for the town buildings. The monthly bill now is around $670 a month. Dave made a motion to try the new voice over internet at the town shed building first. Garrett seconded the motion, and all agreed. For questions regarding the roundabout, please contact David Hamburg at 607-721-8118. With nothing further to come before the board, Dave made a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9 o'clock. Donnie seconded the motion, and all agreed.
Have any additions or corrections? Do you have a motion to accept the meetings, 9 minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Dwight seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, I guess Dave, we'll go with you first.
Okay. There's a few copies up in front of the Kellogg Franklin First Report for tonight. First, the financial statement. The investment account has started to come back up a little bit, thankfully. It's $966,831.20, and the checking is around $33,000. The monthly dividend for May was $2,016. Our pavilion has been started down here. I don't know if you saw it when you pulled in, but the concrete's poured and they're going to put in the post this week. It's going to be 24 by 30 feet. The tentative completion date is mid-June, and our committee is working on a usage policy that will be posted on the pavilion. For the Kellogg Educational and Community Center, the next movie is June 16th, 7 p.m., A Wrinkle in Time. Next Lego Club is also June 16th at 7 a.m. The next exhibit is going to be June 22nd, the Croton House and the Underground Railroad. We've had 2 more grants approved by the Kellogg Memorial Fund at Delaware Academy for the Kellogg Center. Some more Lego events and a summer sports clinic. And grants are being pursued for a farm exhibit in August or September. And 3 grants have been applied for to purchase and install outdoor adult fitness equipment in the playground area. Little League field is available. And thanks to Callie Triarci for making, I guess, crumb coffee cake, like crumb muffins tonight. And our next meeting for the committee will be Wednesday, June 27th. Respectfully submitted, Dave Tuthill for the Kellogg Franklin Trust Board.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave? Okay. I guess now we'll let Bill give us a copy of the presentation of what our new insurance will be.
Very good. It's nice to see everybody. How are you?
Good, thanks, Bill.
And don't worry about camera on, Dave. Thank you.
Sorry. I'll leave you with mine.
I just won't pay you.
He gets even.
Yeah, let me see your.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
Bill, I sign the checks.
Exactly.
help me out, Dawn.
You can have mine.
Oh, it was nice to see everybody. All the invitations on me.
Good thing I called you, huh?
I'd like to say, I think we've had a pretty good first year. I mean, we've accomplished quite a bit of things, and we've gone through some stuff. There's some things that are still underway, under motion. What I've listed here is we've actually had written notice that we talked about it. I mean, you and I worked on it with Dave. I mean, we have written notice that NYMER will pick up the public officials exposure for the Kellogg Trust, and I think at that point, that policy's being canceled out, or has been canceled, right?
Right, yeah.
And again, you know, the reason that we can add that entity onto the policy is simply because the board here, I believe the board is still appointing the board members of the trust, right?
No, they're elected.
They're elected.
They're elected.
But you're funding them?
They
Yeah,
are the town of Franklin.
Yeah, they are
Without the town of
overseen.
Franklin, they couldn't exist.
They don't
Right.
exist. So your existence,
Right.
Right,
So-
right, but we don't appoint them, they are.
they're an entity
they-
under
yes,
yours.
Yes, yeah, yes.
So we talked about the public officials policy, we talked about canceling their policy, picking it up on our policy. We did run a training program in Delhi the other day. Before we were done, we had 130 some people through. The first class, I think, was close to 80 or 90 people there. There wasn't a room. I walked in and turned around, went back out and sat in the lobby, so. But, you know, our next, I'm not sure what the topic is that's coming next, but we will have another quarterly training in Delaware County, and, you know, your employees are certainly more than welcome, and we encourage them to go.
Right.
I would also encourage the employees to consider using the online training program. I know we don't have a lot of computers down at the highway department building, but we do have an extensive online training program, not only for the highway, I might add, but also for the board members. If you have planning boards, zoning boards, some of those entities, there is specific training on there. I would encourage that you use that. I can tell you the planning and zoning board training, if you take all of the classes that are on there,
Right.
they do meet prerequisite for your required state training.
Okay,
So if you need help getting onto that, call me, and we'll get you set up on it. But I think it would be really good if somebody went on and looked at some of these programs.
right. Now, you're probably not in touch with the county planning department. How would we get you in touch with a county planner that's at, you know, that comes to the Franklin Planning Board? Just so he can, you know, either look up to see what your site is, or the training is, or what?
So what I would say is let's set that up through Krista,
Okay,
Chief of the county, right? Let's do that. Okay?
Okay,
And let's start that process, right?
okay. Yep,
Not really much has changed on your renewal. Let's go to page 31. Well, there's 3 columns of premium there. You know, the insurance started at 28,171. Let's round it up,
You
172.
don't have one? Take mine, I'll share Garrett.
Um,
Those numbers need more.
Expiring annualized premium really outlines the risk that was added to the policy throughout the policy period, right? And so we added, you know, it went to 192.58 cents. It went up a little bit. Not sure really where that happened, but you added something. I don't know if it was a piece of equipment or what, but. And then they're asking you to consider 28,683.39 cents, okay? So when you go down through here, I'll just tell you in a nutshell, your rate increase came on the public officials line. It went from 3,549.70 to 3,997.40 cents. That's really the bulk of the increase. And why is that? Well, that's, on that line, NYMER took a rate increase across all the subscribers in the state. It was a rate increase that everybody's seeing. It isn't anything due to losses or any activity or anything you're doing wrong here. I want you to know that, okay? And so it went up $490.81 overall.
What was the reason for that going up?
The NYMER decided to take a rate increase on that specific line.
So they just, why?
It's a decision that the board made, right? And so when they're looking at the overall program, they're looking at losses across the board, right? Not here, because we don't have any losses, but they're looking at them across the board, and they took a slight increase in that line only.
Okay, so if another entity within that insurance group has a dramatic increase in claims, that is reflected back on everyone?
No.
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 But it wasn't here? In other words, it went up to 390, it went to 399,740.
If there was a dramatic increase,
Uh-huh,
that specific subscriber would see the same percentage increase that you see here, plus the public officials line would have been experienced rated, and they would have seen additional increase on that line
for them, but it,
for those particular.
okay, but it would have gone up for everybody.
That's cool. It did, it has.
Okay.
It has. So, any questions on that so far?
not on this, but I know you had an appraiser come out to look at the buildings. How'd that turn out?
I don't know yet.
Oh, you don't know yet?
I don't know
Okay,
yet,
okay.
but I'm glad you brought it up. You know, one of the things that we did promise was that NYMER was going to hire a third-party property appraisal company, CBIZ, and their mission was to evaluate the property values of all of your buildings that are 50,000 in value or more.
Right.
And the intent really is to make sure that the building is insured to replacement cost value, right? So they were out, when were they out, Jeff?
May 15th, I think
Yeah.
it was.
Couple weeks
Yeah, a
ago,
couple weeks ago, yeah.
right?
I didn't know.
And so it might be a couple months before they get their report to us, which I will sit down and
Okay.
go over with you. Now, how would that impact your insurance? First of all, if they have recommended values in their appraisal report that are lower than what we see here on the policy, we won't just lower the policy limits without talking with you, right?
Right.
Most of the time, it makes sense to lower them when you look at what they're using in their calculation and when you look at the total blanket insurance. You could be underinsured on some of your buildings, at which point they would suggest, you know, that you raise the blanket limit of insurance. And we'll have to go over that. And at that point, like, for example, let's just go over. So for example, right now, you have $1.8 million, and I'm on page 5. Okay. Right at the very top, you have $1.85 million of property blanket coverage, and that's going to cover all of your buildings and all of your contents unless they're insured elsewhere. So for example, trucks, they're insured elsewhere. Tools and equipment, they're insured elsewhere. Contractors type equipment, that's insured elsewhere. So this is for buildings and contents. Contents are typically tables and chairs and all of this stuff that you see here, right? Okay, so if you look at the location 1, building 1, that's a town hall and garage. Right now, we currently have 920,000, almost 921 on that building. Property appraisal, and I don't know this, I'm
Right,
just guessing,
right.
but the property appraisal report may come back and say, you know, in order to replace this building, we really need $1.2 million. At which point, we would suggest that you raise the limit, and what they would do is they would endorse on the, it's not a rate increase, but they're going to endorse on more property values at the 1.8 million. Does that make sense?
That'd go to 2.3
Whatever is
or whatever,
recommended.
right, whatever they're,
Right.
and then if a building was lowered in value, you subtract that off that.
That's correct.
1.8, okay.
So I suspect, in what I've seen in the past, is if you have not had a property appraisal report done in recent years, there's probably some adjustments, I'm just being straight with you, there's probably some adjustments that need to be made,
Right,
right?
yep.
I'm not thinking that you're way off base by any stretch, I wanna point that out as well.
Right. Well, I've heard numbers and it sounds like we probably are.
You know.
900,000 for that building and the shop and, you know, for the Strucks, you know, today to build one like that wouldn't touch it.
No, you
I mean,
know,
it's a terrible thing to say, but
it is real. I mean, that's,
that was 420,000, I think, in 30 years ago, something in that range.
that's a non-combustible building, right? I mean,
Right.
it's block and steel and,
Yeah,
you know, when you start looking at block and steel buildings today, it's, you know.
well, it's not, no, it's
not block.
No, it's not block, it's
It's
a
a pole
building.
barn.
The whole building is a pole
Right.
barn, or a frame, right? Or the whole building is a pole barn.
Basically, the whole building's a pole barn, yeah. Finished off, you know, but,
Might not be as bad as yours.
right.
So, yeah, your pole barn construction
Right.
with enclosures on the walls.
Right.
We'll have to see.
We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, if it's concrete and steel, right,
Right.
I'm coming back and
Right,
telling
right.
you, expect $170 to $250 a square foot, depending on what is required
Right.
in that building to
Yep.
be replaced. Right, that's the start. So,
Okay.
did you want to go through it? I mean, we went through it last year pretty extensively. I mean, I'm gonna hit just some of the highlights on it.
Well, yeah, go ahead, if you want.
So basically, this rental is additional to the 28,000.
Yeah, let's go back and look at that. That's a good point.
Yeah,
Is that
then we
something
can
we just
3,100.
Yeah, leased, increased, to increase the leased and rented equipment from 105,000 to 675. Some of this is contractor type equipment.
Where are you at? Where are we?
I'm sorry, go back to page
31.
31.
Back on
Back where
31.
we started.
31?
Yeah, see down on the
Oh,
option,
okay,
option
yeah.
at the bottom.
Optional coverage. So there was some discussion about increasing some of the values on some of your equipment, primarily because you're responsible for the values of those equipment, and you're leasing those equipment, from what I understand, so.
Right, well, they're all renting, aren't they?
They're renting.
Or rentals.
It's all rented, but sometimes, usually it's 2 pieces at a
Right,
time, so you have to have enough.
to cover the two,
Right.
a grader and a excavator, you're
Right,
talking
the
probably
brush tractor, the
$500,000,
broom.
right, broom.
You know, I'm not sure what kind of a rental agreement that you
Right.
have.
Right,
if the agreement is more in line with a lease,
Would you like to see a copy of the rental agreement? We'd get you a copy, Bill, so you can see what we're signing, I guess, right, Paul? Would
Yeah,
that be
there
for-
may be some in the bills, there may be in the back of that
We
one.
can always send you a copy of something.
Yeah.
right, I'm coming back
Just so
down.
you, just so you can see what we're, we're renting, and does this qualify as a, this added cost?
Well, and here's what I'm thinking too. If it's working more like a lease agreement, where you're taking possession of the piece of equipment, we can add them onto the policy specifically, which I think you're gonna get a better rate than just leased and rented
Oh.
equipment, right? But I don't know the terms of
Right.
the rental agreement, and so, you know.
The excavator might qualify for something like that.
Well, the
I
excavator
don't
is
know
still
what
in a
this is.
rental agreement.
It is, but isn't that going towards a,
Yeah, but
Might.
right now it's still depends. It's a
Right.
rental.
Right.
So it's gotta be, depends on how the contract is set. It's not a rental, it's a rental.
right?
Right, I've got to craft the insurance around your agreement, your contract,
Right,
or
right.
your lease.
Well, we'll get you a copy of
But-
of our rental, of our standard rental agreement with, it's usually with Able, or now it's just Stevens or something, Paul?
Well,
No,
that
Bush-
was just the broomer
Bush
and
tractor.
the brush tractor, it was just that Stevenson,
Okay.
most of it's through Abley.
whatnot. So we can get you a copy of it, just so you can see what their agreement is.
Can you get Dawn to email it up?
I don't know, you gotta ask her.
It'd be easier to have Mark do
Mark
it, or,
could probably,
yeah.
Mark
Mark
will-
probably has it.
That's fine. You know, I just want to be clear on what they're looking
Wait,
for,
you see
and,
it in there?
Yeah.
but to give you an idea from a limit standpoint, the cost, right?
Yep, and then you can give us the other options if we put it on as a,
Yeah, seems like that
we
would
were
be
talking,
part
it
of
might be
the,
cheaper to put it on as a piece of equipment that,
Well, that's what.
is somewhat not owned, but you mentioned something about that, that might be cheaper, handled a different way rather than $3,200.
Yeah, so, right now, when we look at,
Covered in the rental agreement, why do you have to have coverage above and beyond?
Because it's our error, it's our destructive error, like the building collapses on it. Or a tree comes down.
when you look at,
Like, if it's outside the barn.
right now, you have 961,000, almost 962 in contractor's equipment limits, right?
That's their problem.
And so that doesn't include this additional,
Right. Stuff we rent,
Right.
equipment we renting.
they don't offer insurance when you rent the equipment?
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know. That might, not my department, I have no idea.
many of them do. Many of them do. And if you want to look at that, you can kind of, I'll cost it out for you, so that you can make a decision. If you're still under a rental and they're providing you with the insurance, you could probably blend it into the cost of the rental piece, right?
Right.
If it
Well,
makes
that
more
would
sense.
Yeah, I mean, they must, I doubt they would rent something to us without having insurance to cover damages, right?
Or at least a proof of insurance.
Right, they probably want
I would.
proof that we have insurance.
Right.
This
That's what it
insurance.
yes.
We've
This
never,
is-
we've never issued evidence of insurance
No.
for these pieces of equipment that I'm aware of.
So we just rent it, and if it blows up, then there's no insurance to cover it?
No, I think that, because my understanding was, when I quizzed Mark out on it, when we got talking about that excavator, was any damage that occurs to the machine, they're responsible for. That's part of the rental agreement. But I think what they're talking right now is, say a tree comes down on top of that piece of equipment, or the building catches on fire and destroys the unit, that's us.
I would assume, they want to make sure that if damage occurs to their piece of equipment,
Yeah.
while it's under your care, custody, and control,
Just see
you're
it.
responsible for
Because he said any, like, mechanical dysfunction, anything to that nature, they covered it.
it.
But if it rolled into that beautiful pond, I guess that would be
Yeah.
an expense.
I mean, if it was negligence, but I don't know, it just seems that that company couldn't be in business if they weren't sure they were renting stuff, that kind of machinery out, and
Not having it covered.
and they didn't have it covered. That's crazy. I mean, I would think, I wouldn't do that.
One would think, so.
I mean,
But you have Mark send that stuff up and we'll look at it and I'll give you the answer.
Does he have your email?
He does.
Okay.
So we talked about the property. Let me just hit some highlights. Maybe you have some questions. I promise you I won't take a long time. Page 5, 6, 7, this is your property coverage again. The blanket limit, 1.8, almost 1.9 million dollars of coverage is available for any one single given loss that you have anywhere as long as it's a listed piece of property, right? Page 8 and 9, these are property extensions. These are additional coverages that go along with the property policy, and they really work in one of two ways. One is they're going to give you additional coverage, or two, they're going to pick up for what might be an indirect loss. I'll give you just a quick example. Extra expense is about halfway down on the first page, on page 8. Extra expense says we lose our town hall. We have to rent a town hall, and so extra expense would be used for rental costs, communication equipment, heating, all the additional items that are going to cost us money while we're in operation, okay? So there's a couple pages of questions. If you go to page 11, this is boiler and machinery, more modern term is systems and equipment. And so this policy is going to protect the building systems, heating system, cooling system, electrical systems, air compressors, automatic overhead garage door openers. You have a well house, you have a whole bunch of stuff, right? And so in that process, the systems that are in these buildings, if there's a loss that occurs to the systems, we pick it up. And it's going to cover for anything that happens to the systems unless it's a wear and tear loss. If the building system is just wore out, that's not an insurance claim. So let's go over to page 13. This is your general liability, and it is protecting the town from suits and claims that arise out of bodily injury, property damage, personal injury, advertising injury. It's going to cover you for fire damage legal limit. If you damage a building that you're occupying that you do not own out of your negligence, you will pay up to $50,000 medical expense. If someone's injured on your property, we're looking to pick up the first $5,000 in the medical expenses. Maybe they need some stitches in their arms. The employee benefit liability limit is $1 million, and really that type of suit or claim that we're looking at this time is where the employee is suing the town, alleging that the town has mismanaged a benefit program. Most of the time what you see is an employee who was eligible for a program but was maybe not enrolled properly, and so the coverage isn't there and they sue.